Why didn't Jesus save himself? He had the power. He had the authority. He calmed storms with a word. He healed the sick with a touch. He raised the dead by speaking their name. And yet, when he was beaten, mocked, nailed to a wooden cross, he stayed. He didn't call down angels. He didn't come down. He didn't even defend himself. That's what the crowds couldn't understand, and maybe deep down we struggle with it too. Because to us, strength looks like escape, victory looks like fighting back. Survival is proof of power. But Jesus didn't come to prove strength. He came to reveal love, and love, real love, doesn't run from pain. It walks straight into it. It doesn't fight for comfort. It sacrifices for redemption. If you believe in the power of the cross, drop a 111 in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more revelation-centered teachings just like this. At the foot of the cross, the religious leaders mocked him. He saved others, they sneered, but he can't save himself. Matthew chapter 27, verse 42. They thought this was proof of his weakness, but they misunderstood everything. Jesus didn't stay on the cross because he was weak. He stayed because he was strong enough not to run. He was strong enough to absorb the full weight of sin, strong enough to hold still while mercy was poured out, strong enough to look his enemies in the eye and say, "Father, forgive them." That's not weakness. That's unstoppable love. Jesus didn't stay on that cross because they forced him to. He stayed because we needed him to. This wasn't a moment of helplessness. It was the fulfillment of his mission. In John chapter 10, verse 18, he said clearly, "No one takes my life from me. I lay it down of my own accord." That's not surrender, that's control. That's divine strategy. He stayed not because he had to, but because he chose to. In the garden, when soldiers came with swords and torches, Peter tried to protect him. He swung his blade and cut off a man's ear, but Jesus stopped him. "Put your sword away," he said. "Don't you know I could call on my Father, and he would send 12 legions of angels?" Matthew chapter 26, verse 53. That's more than 70,000 angels, with enough power to end the world in seconds. But Jesus didn't ask for rescue. He wasn't trying to escape. He was determined to redeem. Because the cross wasn't a trap. It was a target. Jesus didn't walk into that moment blindly. He predicted his death again and again. He told his disciples that the Son of Man would be handed over, mocked, and crucified. He knew what was coming, and he went anyway. Why? Because you were on the other side of that suffering. You were the reason he stayed. Your name was on his heart while the nails were in his hands. And here's what we often forget. If Jesus had saved himself, he couldn't have saved us. If he had stepped down, the sacrifice would be incomplete. If he had escaped the pain, the price for sin wouldn't have been paid. The only way to overcome death was to pass through it. In Isaiah chapter 53, it says, "He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." Those wounds weren't an accident. They were the plan. They were the pathway to peace. And when Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It wasn't confusion, it was prophecy. Psalm 22 opens with those exact words, a psalm written hundreds of years earlier that describes the crucifixion in detail. Even in pain, Jesus was fulfilling Scripture. He stayed on that cross because love stays. Love doesn't look for the exit when it gets hard. Love doesn't bail when it hurts. Love endures all things, believes all things, hopes all things. And Jesus is love in its purest form. So why didn't Jesus save himself? Because he wasn't there to save himself. He was there to save you. And maybe today you're asking God to pull you out of something. You're in the fire. You're in the storm. And you're wondering why he won't just snap his fingers and make it all go away. But sometimes, just like the cross, what looks like silence is actually strategy. What feels like delay is divine timing. And what seems like weakness is the very thing bringing your victory. Jesus teaches us that power isn't always loud. It isn't always lightning from the sky. Sometimes power looks like staying. Staying when you're misunderstood. Staying when you're hurting. Staying when you could walk away, but you know God's purpose is in the pain. There is a lesson in Jesus' silence, in his restraint. He didn't argue, he didn't explain, he simply stayed in position. Because when you're walking in purpose, you don't have to prove anything. You just have to finish what you were called to do. He stayed on the cross until the last breath. And when he said, "It is finished," it wasn't the sound of defeat, it was the sound of completion. The plan was fulfilled, the debt was paid, the war was won, and eternity was opened. And here's the beauty. The same Jesus who stayed on the cross now stays with you. He stays when you're struggling. He stays when others leave. He stays when you don't feel strong enough to stay yourself. That same enduring love that held him to the cross, it now holds on to you. So no, Jesus didn't save himself because he was too busy saving you. And if he stayed then, you can be sure of this, he's staying now.